Happy New Year, everybody. New year, new you. Or at least that's the tagline anyway.
Great tagline, though.
Let me ask you something real quick. How many of your New Year's resolutions have you given up already? How many of you never bothered to make any in the first place? Well, stick around because I may be able to explain why. Welcome back, everybody, to this year's first episode of The Shift. I'm Gavin Waples, and you are part of The Shift. A new year is upon us, everybody. And I don't know about you, but this year has just felt really different. I shouldn't say this year, because technically that would mean like 2025 or like 2 weeks of 2026. But what I mean is leading up to this year has felt different than pretty much any year. And I don't know of many people that actually made a lot of New Year's resolutions. I haven't heard anybody talking about it. I haven't seen a lot of posts. Nothing, really. Crickets. Everything's just a little bit gray. But there were still a couple of things that went on, a couple of trends that I saw going around that may help shed some light on what's going on. The first thing, and what started me on this rabbit hole, is actually an Instagram account called Project 1356. Now this guy started an Instagram account almost 4 years ago, and the whole account was just him every day posting a video of him counting down from the number 1356, as in 1,356 days. One number every single day. But here's the catch. He never said why. For 4 years, he would just post videos with no hint as to why he was doing this countdown. For years, he kept this secret to himself, even to the point where Mr. Beast offered him sums of money, including like $10,000, just for a hint, and he didn't relent. But alas, all good things must come to an end. And this year, January 1st, was day zero. So he posted a YouTube video talking about what was this big 4-year project he was counting down to? Was it some big thing he was going to start up for people to see? Was it some new product he was going to reveal? Or was it that he was dying of cancer and that this was his final day? Did he have insider knowledge about an upcoming war? Nobody knew until this video, and he revealed all.
Tell me now! I cannot bear another moment without knowing!
And what he revealed was that the reason he had made the countdown was that he had set this countdown for himself as a sort of accountability tool. What he did was he set for himself 6 4-year goals, and that was 1356 days. He set these 6 goals for himself, and he put this countdown on Instagram, and he would post a video every single day to remind himself that his time was limited. And you know, the results were mixed. He ended up not completing about half of his goals. A couple of them he did, and a couple of them, his interest changed before the 4 years were up, and he didn't even want to complete them. So for a lot of people, this ended up being a little bit of a letdown, having this 4-year countdown come down to some guy's personal mission. But something he remarked on those videos, and something that we saw throughout this Instagram account being public, was really interesting, and I want to talk about it. Because even though he didn't necessarily accomplish any of his goals, there were a lot of people in his comment section that just by watching his countdown started countdowns of their own. There were people in his very comment section saying, this many days until I get married. And then after they got married, they started counting up from those days. There were people counting how many days they were sober, or how many days they were able to reunite with their kids, or something to that effect, or how many days they had been going to the gym, or how many days they had been a Christian. All of these self-improvement countdowns and count ups at certain points that started from his countdown. And this is a very interesting phenomenon, because one man's accountability journey, without ever saying what it was, started lots of other people on their own accountability journeys. And so even though Project 1356 itself may not have done very much, what it did do was it gave a tangible marker in time for 4 years that your days are limited. That thought alone is what caused a lot of people to try and better their lives. Because here's the thing, if you followed this account, or if you only saw this account once in a while, every time you checked that account, there was a new number and it was lower. And if for some reason you got busy doing other things, or you were off Instagram for a little while, or you didn't, catch the countdown every day, you would check back and suddenly the countdown was way less than the last time you had it. And it forced you to come to a realization that, whoa, my time is a lot shorter. Now, even though most of us didn't only have 4 years left, it did show time passing in a very tangible manner, a way that most people felt. So many of us wake up in life just expecting the next day, that we're gonna wake up and just continue life as normal, or simply stroll through life as any old drone until we wake up and we realize that so much time has passed and we didn't do anything with it. This countdown forced the creator and other people that saw it to come to grips with reality that our days are numbered, with the fact that our time on this earth is very, very short. Our life is but a vapor. And Jesus is coming back real soon. But so many of us live this way, day after day, taking each day for granted and forgetting that waking up each day is a gift and an opportunity. Jesus could be here at any time, and we're going to have to come face to face with that great judge and give account for our lives and the time that we spent here on earth. And whether that be 10 years, 15 years, or 120 years, our time is limited. When we stand before that judge, what are we going to say we filled our time with? Doom scrolling and self-gratification? Time spent furthering our own passions and desires and trying to make our glory great? Trying to make our names remembered? Trying to make our mark on history? Trying to make ourselves worth remembering? Or a selfless life, a life bringing others to the love of Christ and building the kingdom, something that is eternal and will last farther than history? What is it that we have done with our time? You know, the devil, through societal norms and pressures, has kind of brainwashed us into this domesticated stupor of a life where we just perform the motions like good little people and expecting a good turnout. And I've seen alongside Project 1356, there's other trend coming around where people are wanting to go back to 2016 and that saying that 2026 is going to be the new 2016 and the great meme reset is going to come back and we're all going to have better culture and we're going to make it and it's going to be cool.
It's going to be a good year, you know?
And I think that just speaks to how people recognize things were better several years ago. I know this may seem a little bit of a tangent, but it actually comes together quite nicely, and I'll show you why. Because I know it's been very common nowadays to criticize a lot of younger generations for being lazy and not working very hard, or saying new generations have it so much easier. Why do they have to complain? You know, technology is so much better, and jobs are all here, and all kinds of different things that you hear. And I think part of that is true. There's a lot of our generation that has gotten used to the comfort of life, gotten used to other people going through the motions for us. We don't have the internal drive to do it for ourselves like previous cultures did.
I had no motivation whatsoever.
But I think that in and of itself has a cause too, which I think kind of points to the reason why Gen Z wants to go back so much, why they're so enamored by things from the 80s and 90s and even just the 2000s when they were kids, things back when it was Gen Xers and boomers running the world and taking care of things for us. See, back then we still had the same pressures and norms and societal things that we're living with today, that you should be a hard worker, that you should be honest, that you should do things to your fullest, that you shouldn't make anybody do anything for you. All these things that we deemed made a good citizen, that made a good person. And generally speaking, it all had its rewards. Being a good worker gave you a good reputation. It made people want to hire you. Being good at your job made you a valuable commodity that made you something worth going after. Being a good person in your day-to-day life and interactions with other people meant that you weren't going to be ostracized from the community you were around and not alone. It gave you the incentive of having a community if you were good to your community. But the conditions there were also conducive for it. Back then, a family could live life comfortably on a single income, paying for a house and a car. And it was incentivized to have families. You saw the joy in it, and you saw people living good lives. And going to church was encouraged. In fact, it was almost a culture shock when you said you didn't go to church, because that's where so many people found community and connection. But as time progressed, the procedures and the norms and the societal pressures and the expectations all remained the same, but the environment started to change. And I'm not just talking about the weather, I'm talking about the economic environment, the people, the culture, internet, everything started to change, which changed everything. Because nowadays, between insurance, taxes, housing prices, grocery prices, job market, consistent barrage of programming through media and social media, saying that there's no real way to achieve the things that are on your heart and on your mind and the things that you're looking for, all these factors tell people that there's no point in being a good person or even a hard worker because there's no incentive anymore. Now, I know that seems like an easy thing for a member of Gen Z to say and say, hey, things are rougher for us.
My life is a nightmare.
And there are some things that are easier and there's some things that are rougher. But let's look at the actual facts of the modern day climate. Let's just start with taxes because I feel like we can start there.
Where's all your money gone, Daddy?
Taxes.
The taxes for a person making $12,000 roughly or a family making $24,000 is 10%. That's matching what you should be tithing. That's fine probably, but the thing is that tax bracket goes up and up and up. To the point where if you're making $500,000 or so, you're taxed a third of your income. A third that the government just gets to take for whatever reason. And where it used to be encouraged to try to start a business to make a little extra side cash. You know, if your job wasn't doing it for you, try to do some stuff. Well, that is a 30% tax rate as well on everything. Not to mention insurance, because insurance is a whole thing too. You know, once Obamacare came to effect, insurance prices went way different than they ever were. And now that's another payment that most people have to make.
Thanks, Obamacare.
So we got taxes, insurance. Let's move to housing. Here's a little side fact about home buyers nowadays. So back in the 1980s, the average home buyer was around 28 to 30 years old. Fast forward to 2024, average home buyer is 56 years old. Now, that's just an indicator, but check this out. Housing prices in the 1980s were around $80,000. That's the average price of a home. Today, it's around $250,000 to $400,000. Adjusted for inflation, you could say they get fairly close, but what that doesn't take account for is the other extra factors. That taxes have risen so far, that insurance is now more expensive and more people have to have it. And the thing that we haven't even got into yet is the fact that now most people are also carrying debt from college, which means that's another payment that people have to make on whatever job they can find. And people are starting to wake up to this fact. Charlie Kirk did an amazing job with this on the college side of things and on the politics side of things, and even just on the life with Christ side of things, the church side of things. Because even just a few years ago, it was the norm that you would go to college because you were supposed to be promised a better job. But people have started to figure out that, whoopsie, that promise never got fulfilled. And now you're still working at McDonald's, only now you have debt and a lot more other payments to make. A few years ago, this system may have worked, but nowadays, not so much. People were expected to follow the same systems and orders and expectations, and they just kept going on. Only now they realized it didn't really work. And for a while, we didn't even know why. But it doesn't work, and it never has. That has been the devil's trick all along. The truth is, no life can be fulfilled without being Christ-centered. Not just with Christ, but Christ-centered. Because even if you dedicate your whole life to something else and you work at it as best you can and you labor and you spend every day trying to be the best at it or to perfect it, you will never reach the true greatest form without Christ. Because that mentality in and of itself is a religion. And it's a religion without relationship, which just becomes dust, paper, and ash. Our time is so limited, but we live in a God that lives outside of time. I'm pretty sure he has plenty to spare. And the guy that made this whole world in the first place and made you, he knows every source code and every shortcut. And to have a Christ-centered life doesn't mean you'll never accomplish those things that you have on your heart. He put those desires there in the first place. But if your life isn't centered around Christ, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get to the place that he has put in your heart. In Colossians 3, there's a couple verses I want to read here. And it's starting in verse 1. It says, "If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not things of the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory." So, in other words, we're all just dead dust and ash. And all we can do is try to build something with it. Build a little sandcastle, but as soon as a wind or a wave comes by, it's all gone and it's completely impermanent. It's only God that can create life from dust, to breathe into nothing and create something. And so if you're trying to build your own little sandcastle life without God, it is going to fall at the next wave. And nobody in all of history is going to remember it. And sure, maybe you'll be remembered for a short time. Maybe no waves hit. Maybe it lasts for the couple generations. But the thing is, it's still all dust.
Nothing but dust.
You know, the Incas have tons of statues that they've built out in the middle of nowhere. And sure, they're incredible feats, and you could say they're permanent. They've made their mark on history. But the thing is, archaeologists don't actually know what it's all about. They make guesses all the time. Everybody can have a guess, and there's, some written documents that were chiseled out on stone, but if no one remembers the language, there's nothing to know. So all they can do is give their best guess. So even if you make your mark on history, it's all for naught. It's because your life is hidden with Christ. If you build something not of yourself, but if you build around Christ, if you just make Christ the center of your life and build from there out, then there's going to be life in it, and there's going to be something that will make a greater eternal impact beyond even history can find. Because like it says, when Christ is your life appears, you'll both be there in glory. They'll see Christ and they'll see you following Christ, and they'll be like, wow, that's really cool. I can't believe they did that. He put those desires in you, and he has a plan to fulfill them, but they don't work without his plan, his power, and his purpose. Josiah Quinn and Forrest Frank came out with a song recently, which is really, really cool, and you should go listen to it. It's called Jesus is Coming Back Soon.
Jesus is coming back soon.
And it's a truly beautiful song because it draws some attention to the daily lives and the grind that we're all living, and the chaos more so than we've seen in a lot of history, and the fact that everyone just sees nothing but endings and lost hopes. That this world, because of the chaos, has kind of become a shell of itself, just hoping to survive. But the song also shows the heart of people that recognize that we should know that Jesus is coming back soon. And whereas previous generations may have been terrified by that fact, we should rejoice in it. If we're already living like our days are numbered, why won't we live it for Christ? With him, there's a hope. Whether we die and we go to heaven or Jesus comes back, it's going to be a glorious, glorious day. The thought of Jesus coming back should stir you to action. You should be readying yourself for an arrival. I think that's something that we've lost as a generation, is readying ourselves, because we feel like the world is ending, but we should get this heart in us that Jesus is coming back soon. Not just any old Joe Schmo, but the Lord of the universe, the Savior of the world, is coming back, and he's going to ask, what'd y'all do while I was gone? The difference between everyone else's thought of the days are numbered and ours is that we know Jesus is coming to pick us up. And whether it's our lifetime or our grandchildren's lifetime, we should be building a life around that. So when he gets here, or we go to meet him first, we have something to account for. And not just in what we do, but what we say is so important. Jesus says in Matthew 12, verse 36, "But I say to you that every idle word men speak, they will give account for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." Your mouth betrays you. And even if you say nothing, an idle word, and the word that you think means nothing, you'll give account for that one too. We need to start thinking eternally, not just building our own lives, but building kingdom purpose. Not just a sandcastle, but an eternal kingdom. I got a demonstration for you guys. So guys, this is Maverick. Say hi, Maverick. Good boy, yeah. He's tried to crash my episodes a couple of times, but I figured I could bring him on because it actually points out a really important fact. We all heard the expression dog years, probably, right? Dog time works differently than human time, because dogs only live to be about 14 years old, but we as people live to be, somewhere to 80 to 90 on average. Hi, puppy. Yeah. So dogs think a lot more simply than we do. And I thought about this while setting up today because he was in here with me and just causing a chaos. Because he only thinks about eat, sleep, play, poo, and another thing that he doesn't have anymore. So everything in his mind simplifies to one of those 5 things. But we as people have a lot more complex lives going on. See, even right now, he's probably trying to figure out, okay, don't stiff the microphone, Maverick. See, even right now, he's still trying to figure out what is going on. Should I be sleeping? Should I be playing? Should I be trying to find food? But I realize what's going on is that I'm making an episode and using him as a demonstration for people he doesn't even know are there because you're watching this episode. Dogs think differently because their lives are so much shorter. They don't think complexly like we do. I saw this post online comparing a dog and a human life to a human life and an elf life. To us, this dog is about 15 years of our lives. And yeah, we treasure them and we love them and we give them affection and we make parts of our lives for them. But to this dog, we're their whole lives. And near as we can tell, they think we're eternal because we last beyond even them. We exist outside a time that they can comprehend. And for many of us, we just live our lives not even thinking about an eternal purpose that we're actually equipped for. All right, Maverick, you've had your 15 minutes. I've read parts of Tolkien's book, The Silmarillion, which focuses heavily on elves and their lore and things. And he talks about the reason why elvish material is so sought after and so magical is because they think beyond mortals. They think eternally. And they build things for the sake of beauty, not necessarily for the sake of immediate use, like people of the realm do. So if they have to spend 200 years to craft a sword, they're gonna do that because it's gonna be beautiful. Or if they have to spend 10,000 years to build the biggest, most incredible city ever seen, they're gonna do it because they think eternally. So many of us are living basic, normal lives when we should be living like the eternal, the one who created us for eternal things. And all we're doing is trying to get to the next day or the next week or even the next year. And we don't even realize how much time passes around us until it's gone. But we should be living a life full of faith and hope and love and eternal things that God has given to us. Things that can bring love and color back into this world. A life in Christ to a world that just wants to escape itself. We should treat every day as an opportunity to bring beauty and hope and life into this world and show Jesus to the ones that need it, to show them the eternal way. Because that's what Christ wanted to do. When he was here on this earth, he preached the kingdom of heaven. People are starting to realize that there's something more to this world than they're being told. And if we as Christians were to just suck it up and shake loose those broken chains like Paul and Silas in the prison and get out of ourselves, we could tell people about this good news that we carry. Because if we don't, someone else is going to tell them a lie and they're going to build their life around that. And suddenly they're going to be met with a harsh reality, whether on this earth or at Judgment Day, and it's going to shatter them completely. Some of them maybe already have, and then that loss will be on our lazy bones. So start this new year off with an encouragement. Start this new year off with the realization that this isn't just any year. Jesus is coming back soon. Start each new morning remembering that this could be the last one. Not like you're going to die, but that Jesus expects you to live it like it's your only day. Remember that your life is only a vapor in the eyes of eternity. Remember that without Christ, we are dead, and all of our works are dead as well. So this new year, instead of making resolutions that maybe will last a year or 10 years or even your lifetime or beyond, make something eternal. Focus on building your life around Christ and building the eternal kingdom that he has for us. And I promise you'll be more fulfilled at the end of this race than you would any resolution being accomplished this year.